The bottles here, we've got, Minnesota's got some books written about them. Feel free to look at them possibly if you like. On the pottery end of this stuff, a lot of the pottery is dated. There's a code you can read on some of these pottery pieces. We dig a lot of tea leaf. I don't know if anyone knows what tea leaf is, but it's a popular, very popular design. It was one of the most popular designs I've ever seen is this tea leaf design, and we see it broken all the time. It's just a crude, this is just a flow piece, but it's the most common design they put out, and we dig it all the time, and you see it in shops now and stuff. It's a collecting somewhat frenzy. But the pottery, you can basically go down to the.
Yeah, you can. There's different marking dictionaries and different stuff, and a lot of them will have the date codes and how to figure out the age. We do it more with the bottles because we're able to date the bottles more. The bottles were thrown away sooner. I mean, like the dish, that might have been on Grandma's cupboard for 25 years before she broke it. But the bottle is generally consumed and thrown away instantly. So for us to be able to date the bottle, which we're able to do, and a lot of people will ask, how do you do that? And we can generally tell either with the bottom of the bottle or the neck of the bottle. Where the seam line goes, if it goes to the top, it's a machine-made bottle, basically after 1905. By looking at the bottom, we can tell if it's a hinge mold, if it's a post mold, or all kinds of different technology that was changing over the years. And then you can also tell by whose name is on the bottle. If you dig up a Clorox bleach, you don't even need to know that it's a machine-made bottle. All you need to know is they came in business in 1923. So if you know all these different dates and stuff, that's why we can generally date a hole to within 5 years. And people are always asking, well, how can you do that? And I mean, Mark could hold up a bottle like this from here to that wall, and I could identify almost exactly within 5 years of when it was made just by, well, it's a thing that you develop over the years. I mean, there's little markings on the bottom with, like this one here has a different mark than the other one. There's WTC.
Right, I'll take a company.
All kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. As far as date and stuff, you can have a mix in a privy. I can give you an example. We were digging in Red Wing, Minnesota. We're digging a privy. There was a little depression in the yard. We got a residual permission from another primary permission, and we went over and talked to the neighbor's house. Got permission from the guy. We went over there and dug, poked it up right away. It was 1950s on the top. We were getting foil caps for milk bottles, and then it got a little bit older. And all of a sudden he says, "You want to keep digging?" I says, "Yeah, I'll go a little bit longer." So I broke down into it, I hit another layer, and all of a sudden it went from 1950s and 40s to 1895. Like, wow. And the only thing I can think of what happened there, the only way it can happen is that privy was last used in 1895, and they changed, or something happened. Maybe someone had cholera or tuberculosis or consumption, whatever you want to call it, and they started another privy because we found a newer privy on the property, and that privy was left standing. Well, in 1945, 1940, that privy collapsed. Then they started throwing garbage in that hole to fill the hole in the backyard, and that's why you get the disparity in the age of that pit. The only thing I can think of. It doesn't make any other sense, but something like that happened. I had another occasion where I was digging in Eau Claire. The house had burned down in 1899, and it was a fancier house, and there was sandstone chunks all around, and I probed at this area about 2/3 the size of this table, and I couldn't get my probe in the ground at all. It's reverse probing then. I couldn't get it in the ground. I had to know why. I was determined to find out why. So we got down 2 feet, and there's these big 200-pound chunks of sandstone. Well, I can't move it, so I had this big railroad bar with me I brought. Started breaking them in half, throwing them out. We got about 6 chunks of this base around the privy. And we started finding bottles packed like cordwood. There was hundreds and hundreds of bottles in there, packed in there. It was some of the here's I believe one of these came out of there, that committee. John Walsh out of Eau Claire, in a quart blonde beer. And they were just packed with cordwood, and it was phenomenal. The privy must have burned as well in that fire, and then when they would come back to do whatever, they kicked the chunks of sandstone that was out over the ground like this around the perimeter. They pushed them in the hole and called it good. And that's what I had to know why there was something, what was down there in that spot of the ground, and it was a good, I just had to know, and it paid off really well.
Yep. On the other side of that story is Red Wing. We're probing in a backyard, maybe it takes us 2 or 3 days to find a hole, and we dig down 8.5 feet, and we find one bottle. One bottle, and it's just a plain bottle. So when we find a hole, we cannot guarantee what's in the hole or anything like that. All we can guarantee is it is a hole, and we don't know why it was dug. But once we get the hole dug, we can answer a lot of the questions, but maybe we still can't answer why some dummy years ago dug this stupid hole and threw nothing in it. It's like, really? Yeah, it's just, sometimes we just don't even try. It's like, okay, on to the next one. That one's over with, that was exercise. And we can dig 3 8-foot holes in a day. And I could dig 4 if the boss would let me, but I grew up in Altoona. I know it's not my fault, but anyway, I live now north of the Twin Cities, so for me to come here, it's a 2.5 hour drive. But I still enjoy it. Like I say, we dig in Eau Claire. I'd like to dig in Altoona, but I think there's only about 4 places that actually still are available. And it's all sand there. So if I dig in sand, I have to bring stuff to prevent cave-ins. Because in 6 feet of sand, if you're standing 6 feet 2, you're gonna be buried up to here. So it will collapse. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And usually when you get 6 feet down, it's gonna start to cave in. Around here, we don't have that problem.
We have been always asked, why don't you dig the big city that you live next to? Why don't you dig Minneapolis, St. Paul? And it's a simple reason. Honey dipping service. They had a service that was mandatory in St. Paul about 1885 and after that, but they had to have the privies cleaned out. They had people come by and suck them out with a bell or a steam cleaner or whatever they had, hired convicts, whatever they did, those guys would shovel that stuff out and they would clean the privies out in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. St. Paul particularly, Minneapolis not so much. So that's why we come to these small towns out here to find stuff that we cannot get in our city because there's only one pit and it's dipped. You dig a pit in St. Paul, you're not getting 1870s or earlier. You're going to dig only one pit in that yard and it's going to be dipped 99% of the time. And you're digging for the corners and the bottom.
You see what happens is the privy was square and the bucket was round. And so when they're dipping down in there, they'll miss 1 or 2 bottles in the corner. But now if they've cleaned that, say, 4 or 5 times, the odds of that bottle being a hole in the corner is really, really low. And that's why, as diggers, we nicknamed St. Paul as St. Pitiful. Because you could dig 100 holes in St. Paul, which I've done over the years, and you come up with maybe 2 or 3 bottles. It's so pitiful. I mean, and then the other side that he didn't mention is, believe it or not, nobody in St. Paul, nobody in Menominee has ever threatened to shoot us. So it's like, yeah, maybe we're crazy, but at least now, I actually was in St. Paul in one neighborhood where, luckily we're already digging on this lot. And it's around 8 o'clock in the morning, and you see the hand come out of the window with a gun and it just boom, 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 quick 4 or 5 shots in the air. I'm like, what's that? Good morning? It's like, yeah.
St. Paul Rooster.
Yeah, St. Paul Rooster. So it's a different town to dig in, and
Did you keep digging?
Oh yeah, we kept digging. You're in the foxhole by then, you see. And then it's like, okay, you're kind of keeping an eye on the window, yeah. Yeah.
Plenty of times we dig, sometimes we've actually come across pits that have been dug before as well, once in a great while. We can usually tell that right away, and then we'll usually stop. But a lot of times, it's virgin areas. My second time I went to Menominee, I dug. We were in South Menominee, down for 10th, I believe it was. And this piece came out. This was a hole that most other diggers would give up on, that are seasoned diggers. It was 1930s on top. And this piece was down 5 feet. And it was probably another thing where the privy stood for 40 years and it was unused, and they threw trash in it in 1935 when it collapsed. And they threw trash down 5 feet down. I got down past 5 feet, and it dropped to 1890s again. This bottle came out of there. This Torger Hansen Cork Coffin Whiskey, which is a tremendous, I had only dug one of these ever before that time. And this come out of there. I was ecstatic when this come out of the ground. That come out of there. It was, matter of fact, Diane Palm, a few people may know who she is, and Kevin Toner, they used to own the Torger Hansen house. And she was over there watching us at 10 o'clock at night that one night. It was phenomenal. And it just goes to show persistence pays off. He's very perseverance, and so am I. Beyond belief.
Yeah, you have to be dedicated to it. It's good exercise. We dug 2 holes yesterday, basically pretty much the first holes of the season, and I don't have a sore muscle in my body. I mean, I actually feel better today than I did on Friday. I kind of have a bum knee a little bit, and the exercise, that all keeps it all limbered up. I don't know. It works for me.
There's sometimes when we've had people, they want us to save these shards for them. If we dig a house for a homeowner and you want shards like this to make some kind of mosaic, have at it. If you want to, get a spot where we're at, it's all yours. This is a cool blue piece. We've never dug a piece like this before either. I don't know if that's a butter dish or what that is.
I have no idea.
But that was super cool. Also, here's a little pottery lesson for today. This was in the kiln. These are called turkey droppings. This is from sulfuric acid. This is salt glazed pottery. It's called from sulfuric acid condensing on the ceiling in a kiln where they put product after product after product on stuff. And this drops from the ceiling and creates these turkey drops on this bottom marked Red Wing stoneware piece. It's just salt glaze was in use till about 1897, and then after that was zinc glaze, which is the white pottery you see.
Yeah, people always will ask us, what are we doing? Are you digging for gold? We'll say, yeah, we find gold in every hole. You see, it may be just on the print on the dishes, but we find gold in every hole. As far as coins, okay, last year somebody asked me if we ever dug a coin, and this was at a dig site. And lo and behold, on that day, we dug a 1858 Canadian 1 cent piece. And the thing of it is, you see this is brass, copper. It comes out so corroded that really all it is. The coin has virtually no value. They're way too corroded for any numismatic value. So it's just kind of oh yeah, I found one. And the dolls, sometimes the dolls are whole. Remember the one in Rogers where the woman came out, we dug the doll head, and she goes into the house, and she comes back with a picture of the little girl sitting on the fence holding the doll.
Exactly.
So that's really cool, so.
We give that piece of that home.
Yeah, we get, like I say, I've been involved in, where the great-great-great-grandchildren are around. And so they're like, oh, doorknob and this, So they save everything because it all has historical meaning to the family. And I really like that. I've been written up several times in different newspapers where the great granddaughter glued together the doll head, and her great grandmother was still alive in the nursing home, and once again you know, where did you get that? The last time I saw that was 1913. And her cousin or somebody was up from Minneapolis, this was in Elk River, and they were arguing over the doll, and it got broken, and it was in the hole. And when I was in the hole, I didn't have the heart to tell the granddaughter that there was a dog skull down there with a bullet hole in it too. So that's where the dog ended up too. There's a lot of stuff that some stuff you run across is better not to tell the people.
Yeah.
But I've been entertainment for parties. Okay, you get permission to dig, and they'll go, well, can you be here at such and such a day? And I'm like, why? Well, we're having a family reunion, we're having a wedding party or something. I don't care, you know, it's fine with me. So, but yeah, it's kind of fun, and yeah, I enjoy it. But the different things that you come out of the hole, you know, it's sometimes you, what's that? Oh, you don't really want to know.
I have a what's that, the crown piece there that's broken in half. I assume it's the cover for that other bowl.
Right.
Yes, it is.
But what is it when it's all together?
You know, there you go.
It's a hair receiver?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a hair receiver. Okay, what's that?
Yeah.
People often say that the privy's got to be in the back corner or the back part of the lot. They're thinking in modern day terms. Back then, smell and other stuff was not important. It was convenience.
Yeah.
If it was 25 below zero, you want to walk from here to here or whatever. You don't want to walk from here around the corner and out to 94 to go to the bathroom. You know, you want to go where it's convenient possible, where there's less path, and maybe you have a cow or a horse or something in the backyard. You want to make sure you're not walking through horse landmines and stuff, you know, on the way to your own trip. So the privy could be anywhere. We've had them right out the back door.
Right up against the wall. This is your house, and the privy is right here. So I mean, it's right there. And here's another thing: the privy is here, and right over here is the well. It's like, it's mineral water, right? Yeah, it's like, yeah. I've actually, in St. Paul, there was a house they had knocked down, you know, when I was there, and they had knocked down and left the stone basement. And I looked all over, and I couldn't find the privy anywhere. And then when I'm down in the basement looking because sometimes when they are building the building, they might drop a bottle by the stone and different stuff. So I'm down there, and there's this gray spot in the bottom of the basement floor. I'm poking around, and sure enough, the privy was in the basement. And he's like, well, I'm not going outside when it's cold. I went into the basement. Yeah, it was like, you cannot figure out. That's why sometimes we just scratch our head. And there's also what they called a drawer pull privy. Okay, so instead of digging a hole, what they did was they just had a wooden box. Okay, so you got the toilet sitting up this far, and the wooden box had an opening out the back, and they would just pull the drawer out after it was used several times. You just dump it out on the ground and slide it back in. And all the kids knew better than to play behind. It's like, I'm not going back there. So yeah, I mean, it was a totally different lifestyle. You know, the people used to go to the country to get away from the smell of the city, because you had the horses, you had the outdoor toilet, you had all that stuff going on in the city, plus the wood stoves, and they weren't, you know, clean environmental stoves, and the coal smoke and all that kind of stuff. So the cities were really actually a stink hole. And so that's where you went out to the country to get away from all that. And you know, it's a good thing that they threw all the trash away, otherwise we wouldn't have a hobby.
I'm curious if you have been tempted to keep a record of what you find, the kind of mapping.
Oh, yeah, if we did that, we,
Wouldn't be able to dig the same day.
well, we kind of have a mental record, but as far as writing down each item and that kind of stuff, no, pretty much not. we kind of, like in Princeton, I keep track of the addresses and different things, but not every item. Otherwise, it's, you see, we're kind of archaeologists, but we're not. I have a true story of an archaeologist. Okay, there was four of them. There was four of them came. The city of Otsego hired this archaeology firm, like $7,000. They spent 2 weeks with all their fancy equipment and everything else. And I volunteered to be there. And they wanted to know what I wanted to do. And I told them, I says, I'm just a trained observer. He says, what are you talking about? I said, I want to be here to watch how you guys do this. So I went there, and I'm talking to one guy. He was so aloof, it was terrible. You couldn't talk to him. He was the expert. And this other guy, I'm talking to him, and I asked him, I says, out of 100 sites like this, I says, how many outdoor toilets do you dig? And he says, well, he says, maybe one. And I says, if I had 100 sites, I says, I would dig 400. And he goes, how can you do that? I says, well, I says, you see the house across the street? I says, I can tell you exactly where the outdoor toilet is from here just by the vegetation. And he's like, leans over to me and he goes, you want to do me a favor? Don't dig this one till after we leave. And I'm like, yeah. And this guy, when they were gone, it took me 15 minutes to find it.
2 pits.
Yeah, it was right where it belonged, and they're like, the reason they do not want to dig an outdoor toilet is you're looking at it right here. If they dig this bottle, they have to take a picture of it, label it, mark it. Okay, I'm only getting paid $8,000, $7,000. I'm not going to do all this work. So they avoid the situation big time. The only time they are really interested in any real history is if they're digging the governor's mansion, the judge's house, or something like that. All the rest of it doesn't really matter. And I have actually been around sites that the archaeologists they will dig all this kind of stuff out, and then they sit there, and then they'll just haul it away, and it gets lost. So all that history, they don't want you to, as an individual, they won't let you get it. But it's almost terrible, because like I've gone to the Historical Society in St. Paul, and I asked them to see the stuff from Red Wing. I mean, Red Wing was in business for over 100 years. And they show you a few pieces like this, just like this. That's it. Now you see, I have pictures of Red Wing, okay, that it goes on forever. I mean, there's like 30 pictures. It's solid. And if I donated that to the Historical Society, this would be in a basement someplace for 30 years. And then some director would come along and de-assess it. Do you know what de-assessment is?
The garbage can.
What's that?
The garbage can.
No, they decide that they're going to sell it. They're going to de-assess it. So you can donate anything and everything to these places, and if the director comes along who decides that they're not interested in it, it's gone. And that's kind of the part that I don't like on some of this stuff. I've been in St. Paul, they wanted to do a display on gangsters, so they actually had to go to the private collector to get the stuff to put together the display, because somebody back in the day decided, hey, John Dillinger's hat is a cool thing to keep. You know, at the time, the police department that had it, they threw it out the back door. But somebody like us goes, hey, that's cool. And that's what we're doing. We can't, after we pass away, we don't know what's going to happen to our stuff. But at least they're not gonna build a garage over the top of it, or dig it out in a basement and just have it hauled away to a landfill because it's a bunch of garbage. It's not a bunch of garbage, it's a bunch of history. And that's what we try and do. Yes,
Okay, so if we wanted to go home,
right.
what are you looking for with your probing? What are typical outhouses?
Well, that's a good question. That's a skill that takes a lot of
Yeah.
work. And there's the tool, if you don't have the right tools, like we got a piece of spring steel here with a bead
Yeah.
welded in next to it.
When I first started this, I didn't know what I was looking for either. It takes a long time. It's a lot of experience. What you do is, you're looking for what we call the sea soil horizon, which is a really hard part of the ground. And when you do that, you can almost stand on those. Now, if you're going along and you can't find the sea soil horizon with this one, then you have to bring out a longer one. Until you establish what you're looking for, you can't find it. You're not necessarily going to run into a piece of glass. Now, over the years, we've determined that we can tell if it's a piece of glass, a piece of stonework, a piece of brick, or whatever you're going through down.
Coal ash.
Coal ash, different things like that. So it's a lot of experience. We've had people that, okay, they will give you permission, but then they think they're gonna dig the hole themselves, and after 3 feet, well, there wasn't anything there. Well,
They're 8
no,
feet
that's
down.
because it may be 9 feet down. You see, and so it's one of the things that we would love to teach people how to do it, but most people do not want to spend the time. I mean, it really is a labor-intensive hobby. But, you know, if they want to dig in the hole, that's fine with them.
We've
We
had
don't care.
homeowners do that.
Yep,
for monotony.
yep.
Go ahead with your question.
I think with all the different embossed models